Chapter 18. Monica decided to make a special dinner for the family on her last day in Texas. She had only meant to visit for a few days, but stayed longer while Dawn recovered. She needed to get back to work, back to Terry. She still couldn't believe someone had tried to kill Dawn. She was terrified of staying in his house, even temporarily. She felt like she was being dragged back into that old life. She didn't want that. But it had been good spending some time with her son. Summer was too far away. As she walked toward the deli at the supermarket, she considered asking Jordan if he'd want to live with her for a while. Things were so crazy at Dawn's house. That place just wasn't safe. If neither boys were responsible for the fatal happenings, then she needed to get them away from there. Them? Was she considering taking Connor with her? She had warmed up to the boy slightly, though he still seemed a little creepy. Monica shook the thoughts out of her head. She would focus on them after dinner. She told the butcher what she wanted, and then waited patiently while he sliced the meat. A woman walked up to the counter next to Monica and smiled. A moment later, Monica noticed a paperback novel in the woman's basket. It was one of Dawn's. "Are you a fan of his?" she asked the woman, pointing to the book. "Oh, yes," she said. "I've read all of his books. I especially like the one about the cursed brothers." Monica nodded. That was her least favorite. "Yeah, that's an interesting one," she lied. "Have you read many of his books?" the woman asked. "Some, though I usually get free copies every time." The woman looked quizzical. "I used to be married to him," Monica confessed before introducing herself. "Pleased to meet you," the woman replied as she shook Monica's hand. "I'm Deirdre Marshall." "That name sounds familiar," said Monica. In fact, the woman herself looked familiar. "You must not be from around here," Deirdre said playfully. "I'm a local reporter, fairly famous, at least in my head." The woman laughed again. Monica recognized her now. She'd watched the morning news in Dawn's hospital room the day after his surgery. As if reading Monica's mind, Deirdre asked, "How is Mr. Scott doing? I reported on his accident, but I haven't heard anything since." "He's fine, thank you." Monica knew this woman was fishing for inside information, so she tried to stay on her toes. Dawn had told her to ignore all calls made to the house, and there was no doubt that Deirdre had been one of the people who had made the most calls. As the reporter paid for her order, she said casually, "Being in the business I'm in, I can't help being curious about our real local celebrity. A lot has been happening around his house for the past few years. The deaths in the woods behind his house, and now his near-fatal attack. How do you feel about this, especially with your son in that house?" "Are you looking for an exclusive interview, Miss Marshall?" Monica dropped all forms of pleasantry. "Can you blame me for being concerned? With the children and all." Something struck Monica at that moment. This woman's voice was even more familiar than she'd realized. She'd heard it even before that newscast at the hospital. "You're the one who called me at my house, aren't you?" she asked. Deirdre smiled. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't play dumb. Just after Dawn's neighbor died, you called me. You were hoping I'd come out here so you could talk to me." Deirdre's smile remained, but it looked venomous. "Sister to sister. I know there's something going on with that man that he doesn't want anyone to know about. And I know you've been having to deal with it yourself for a long time. I don't think it's fair to you or the children." "Well," said Monica, "sister to sister, I think you should mind your own business. If you're looking for a story, you're not going to find it here, honey. Don is a good man and a good father. You think that just because we're both black women, I'm going to dish on my white husband like you and I are girlfriends?" Deirdre looked positively ecstatic now. "You mean ex-husband." Monica didn't respond. She recognized her Freudian slip, but didn't want to dwell on it. "He claims he was out of town the night his neighbor was killed, but I know that's a fabrication." Deirdre looked triumphant. With that, the woman left the store and a bewildered Monica behind. "That woman is really determined," Don declared as he helped Monica prepare dinner that night. "She won't rest until she gets a story," said Monica. "Then she won't rest." Monica sighed. "Don, she seems to be getting closer to something. She said that she knows you weren't where you said you were the night Leper was killed." Don started at that. He looked her in the eyes, his heart racing. "It could be a scare tactic," she added. "It might not be. I did lie about where I was." Monica stopped cutting the carrots and stared at him, waiting. "I was with, how can I put this delicately? A lady of the evening." Monica suddenly laughed. "Oh, Don, how could you?" He laughed as well. "You don't really care, do you?" "Not at all, but Deirdre might." She started cutting again, and then stopped. "Why were you with a whore anyway?" "I tried to make myself happy, just in case the curse was affecting me again." "What made you think it was coming back?" she asked. "All those deaths in the woods over the years. It could have been me." "And it could have been whoever attacked you that night." Don grew silent once again. He knew who'd attacked him. What remained unclear was whether or not the kid knew it himself. That night, after dinner, Don checked in on a sleeping Connor. He was in his bed, his window slightly open. Don walked over to the sill and looked around. He didn't notice any dark smudges like he'd seen in Jordan's room. Did Connor use his cousin's room to get in and out of the house that night? As he quietly left the room and returned to his own, he considered the possibility that his nephew was responsible not only for Leper's death, but all of the others as well. On the way to his own room, he passed the guest room where Monica was staying. Since she'd returned her rental car the other day, Don was to drive her to the airport so that she could return to her normal, happy life. But he didn't want her to go. Having her back for this short time had been wonderful, just like old times. It reminded him of the way things should be. He lightly knocked on her door. She opened it. The room was lit by a warm-colored lamp by the bed. Monica was wearing a red silk nightgown, one that Don had bought her for an anniversary present forever ago. "I just wanted to see if you needed anything," he said nervously. Monica looked so beautiful that his mind suddenly turned to mush. "I'm fine, thanks," she smiled. "Can I come in?" "My goodness, if my parents knew a boy was in my room after curfew, they'd kill me," she joked as she backed away and let him in. They lay on the guest bed, talking for what seemed like hours, catching up with each other's lives over the past 10 years. "So," said Don, "who's Terry?"
A guy I'm seeing.
Is he good to you?
The best.
In other words, he hasn't killed anyone. They were lying side by side, staring at the ceiling. Monica looked at him now.
You understand why I can't be with you anymore, she said.
Because you're afraid of me.
And because you lied to me about something very important.
It's a very painful subject, Monica. I killed my brother because I was afraid of him. I was a coward, and now he's dead.
I know.
They grew quiet for a moment.
What if Deirdre finds out?
Monica asked. That keeps me up at night sometimes, he admitted. I'm going to have to talk to her.
Are you serious?
Yes, but I didn't say I would tell her the truth. I'm going to give her a false trail to follow. Monica laughed.
I wish I could be there when you do.
Will you come back someday? She kissed him on the forehead and said,
Yes.
They stared at each other for a while, saying nothing. And then Dawn leaned in to kiss her on the lips. Monica, however, pulled away.
Good night, Dawn.
He got up, sighed, and said, Good night, Monica. And then he left her alone.